morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock. Back in business as legal restrictions on masks and social contact are lifted in England.
I've had my vaccines. I want to have a good time, hon.
So excited. So excited. Can't wait for it.
It's just like a relief after such a long time.
But the Prime Minister urges caution as scientists warn cases could surge to 200,000 a day.
The legal requirement to wear one of these in stations like this might have gone, but the expectation and the recommendation to wear one is still very much there.
More than 500,000 pinged by track and trace as NHS staff are told they could be spared isolation in England amid fears of staff shortages.
It's quarantine-free travel to amber list countries from today, but only if you've been double jabbed and not if you're off to France. It's a complicated picture, and Manchester Airport's still only at 10% capacity. How big a day is it for international travel?
Good morning. Lewis Hamilton celebrates winning the British Grand Prix in front of 140,000 fans, but his championship rival accuses him of being disrespectful and unsportsmanlike.
Good morning. It's a warm start to the day, and it's also going to be a hot and sunny one ahead. In fact, for the week ahead, we're also looking at that as the forecast. Hot and sunny by day, warm by night, but there is a chance we could see some isolated thunderstorms. I'll have all the details coming up.
Good morning, it's Monday, it's the 19th of July. Top story for you this morning is that 16 months after they were first introduced, most legal restrictions on social contact have been lifted in England.
Groups of any size can now meet inside and outdoors. Guidance to work from home has been scrapped and face coverings are no longer required by law, though people will still be encouraged to wear them in shops and on public transport.
Prime Minister urged the public to be cautious, insisting that the Delta COVID variant remained extremely contagious. A warning, our first report from Lakshmi Gopal does contain some flashing images.
The moment they've been waiting for over a year. The final stage of unlocking in England, with social distancing rules dropped. 1,000 people packed into this club in central London, with many more lining up outside. They've waited 16 months. What's a little longer?
There's so many people here, and we're just so pumped to get in there.
It's been a year and a half, and now we're all just ready to dance.
I've had my vaccines. I want to have a good time, hon.
So excited. So excited. Can't wait for it.
It's just like a relief after such a long time. Just have freedom.
Nightclubs are one of the few businesses that have had to stay closed throughout the whole pandemic, among the last to reopen.
And this is what many have waited so long for, and what the nightlife industry has so desperately needed.
Some feel the sector has been sidelined.
The last year has been hell on earth. I mean, it's been very, very difficult. If you look at what happened last week with the football compared with what's happening tonight, and you think, why were we treated differently?
All we're doing is taking the screens out, putting them into storage.
It's more sedate, but no less celebratory at this pub in West London, where they're preparing for an end to table service only and mandatory masks.
I can't wait to enjoy doing our job rather than sort of having to basically be a policeman the whole time. And just lecturing people on what they can and can't do, where they can and can't go, the masks they wear, what they touch, where they sanitize, where they track and trace. It's going to be strange for us to adapt again, and the notion of people coming into the pub, being able to go to the table themselves without being directed.
As of midnight in England, nearly all legal restrictions on social contact have been removed. Face coverings are no longer required by law, but are still recommended in crowded, enclosed spaces. Meanwhile, Scotland has moved to what's known as Level 0. Limits on social gatherings remain, with face covering still mandatory in shops and on public transport. In Northern Ireland, the latest phase of unlocking is expected next week. While in Wales, most COVID rules are to be scrapped from the 7th of August, though face coverings will still be required in many indoor public places. There is concern about restrictions easing at a time when COVID cases in the UK are rising.
We're at the point where 10% just over of intensive care beds in England are occupied by people who have got COVID. So there's been a significant increase in pressure on intensive care services over the last few weeks.
With experts warning that cases could surge further, and with a third of adults not yet fully vaccinated, the worry is at what price this new freedom?
So let's talk about this right now. Lakshmi is at a supermarket in London for us this morning. How are they adapting to changes there? Morning.
Good morning, Louise. Well, yes, so masks are no longer mandatory, but the government advice is that people continue wearing them in enclosed, crowded spaces, like, for example, a shop, although not very crowded at the moment. But Iceland is one of many of the main supermarket chains who say that they will continue to encourage customers to keep wearing face coverings. And Iceland's trading director is with me now, Paul Dhaliwal. So, Paul, tell me, what happens then when an Iceland customer decides not to wear a mask to come in? Are you going to stop them?
We're not going to stop them though, but our recommendation to customers is that they do wear a mask and just approach with caution whilst this pandemic is still going on. I'd just like to say thank you, a massive thank you to all our store colleagues and all retail workers across the UK for being true heroes during this pandemic and keeping the nation fed.
Now, if some of those colleagues that you mentioned, if they feel unsafe coming into work as a result of people not wearing masks, what are you going to do?
Well, we need to listen to the challenges that our store colleagues are facing and give them as much support as we can to make sure they feel as safe as possible coming into stores. The safety of our colleagues is of paramount importance to us.
Now, some supermarkets have said that actually such high numbers of their staff are having to, this is a slight tangent, such high numbers of their staff are having to isolate as a result of being pinged by the COVID app. Just wondered, is that something that Iceland has experienced?
Absolutely. This is a big challenge for a lot of retailers across the UK and a lot of industries. We know we have over 1,000 people off work at the moment because of COVID, but only 30% of them are tested positive. So we do urge the government to find a solution quickly to allow these healthy people to come back to work.
Now, just briefly, Paul, the Prime Minister did say that businesses had the discretion to enforce mask wearing in their premises if they wanted to. Why did Iceland choose not to go down that route?
It would be unfair to ask our store colleagues to enforce our customers to wear masks. We shouldn't put them in that uncomfortable situation, but our recommendation is let's protect each other and ask our colleagues as well as customers to wear masks as possible.
Paul, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And yes, that is the message from a lot of supermarket chains, that it is something that they're not enforcing, but that they are encouraging customers to do.
And we'll get reaction from all sorts of places throughout the programme this morning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So England may be unlocking, but 3 senior members of the Cabinet, including the Prime Minister, are self-isolating at the moment. Let's get the latest on this from our political correspondent, Jonathan Blake, who joins us from Downing Street this morning. Jonathan, what on earth happened yesterday? It felt like a day where things changed quite quickly.
They certainly did, Dan. If you were lucky enough to be enjoying a Sunday lie-in, you might have missed what is probably the quickest government U-turn in history. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, as you say, is isolating. The Prime Minister isolating at his country residence in Chequers, and the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, isolating himself after testing positive for COVID. They are doing so, though, only after an initial decision to allow these ministers to take part in a pilot scheme which would enable them to continue working, even though they've been close contacts of someone who's tested positive. But after a backlash yesterday morning, that decision was reversed, and those 3 ministers, as you say, will be isolating for the next few days. It is important, though, because at this point in the pandemic, government guidance to continue following the rules if you're contacted by test and trace is key to keeping cases at a manageable level. A change has been announced for NHS staff who will, in exceptional circumstances, be allowed to continue working if they are contacted by test and trace only after they themselves get a negative test. No talk of a return to normal today, no talk of putting the pandemic behind us. Downing Street is at pains to emphasise caution and for people to continue to follow the rules that are there.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.